Hello, it's the IT Guys 99 here, and welcome to this Microsoft Excel tutorial. Today we're going to be covering all of the basic features of Microsoft Excel in just 20 minutes. This tutorial is aimed at beginners or people with very little experience in Excel. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to look at is the naming conventions in Microsoft Excel 2016. The first of these is the workbook. The workbook is our whole document. We can think of this a bit like an exercise book. Inside our workbook, we have a number of worksheets. These are like the pages of an exercise book. Each of these worksheets is made of a grid-like pattern like we see here. We can see all of the open worksheets by looking at each of the tabs along the bottom. Each worksheet is made up of a grid of cells. A cell is one of these rectangles that we see in our grid. Each cell belongs to both a column and a row. A column is a vertical selection of cells, which I have here in yellow, and a row is a horizontal collection of cells that we see here in red. Each cell belongs to both a column and row, and that is how we find its cell reference. The cell reference is made of first the letter of the column, in this case B, and the number of the row, in this case 5. So this cell reference will be B5. You can always check a cell reference by looking in the top left, and we'll see in the name box the cell reference for the currently selected cell. If we wanted to select a series of cells, for example B1 to 5, we start off with having the B1 as our selection, and then we would do a colon and then B5, and that tells us that we want all of the cells between B1 and B5. Next, we're going to look at how we create new worksheets. To do this, we come down to the bottom of our page and press this little round plus button that says New Sheet. This has now created a new worksheet. To rename this worksheet, what we're going to do is we're going to come down, right click, and click Rename. We can now choose the name for our worksheet. And there we go. Next, we're going to be looking at the different number formattings in Microsoft Excel. These formattings are very important to be able to use Excel effectively. The first of these is the number format. Each of these has automatically had the number format applied to them. We can, however, change either the number of decimal places, either up or down. So we can increase the number of decimal places by using this icon, and decrease it again using this one. The next format we're going to look at is a date format. First off, I'm going to type in a date, like so. This has now had the automatic date format applied to it. However, there's some different options that we can have for the date. The first of these is the difference between the short date, which has it displayed like we have here, and the long date, which will display it in words. If I change it to the long date, we can see it now says 18th of December 1986. I'll now fill in the rest of these dates and put them back to the short date format. The next set of formatting options is for currencies. We're going to select these wages, which we want to format as a currency, and then we're going to press this little extra icon by the number formatting options. We're going to choose between currency and accounting. Accounting will line up the currency symbols on the left hand side of the column and keep the decimal places in the same place for the column. Currency will have the currency symbol next to the numbers. However, we'll let you have negative values for the currency, which you can choose to display in red if you wish. Again, we can also specify the number of decimal places, and also change between the different currency symbols. I'm going to leave mine as British pounds, and click OK. As we can see, we have our monies here formatted in currency, and if I wanted to make one as a negative, I can, and it will now display in red. Let's put that back. Finally, we have the text options, like we have here under name. We can format these as text, and that allows us to have words in our Excel document. This is also useful if you wanted to insert phone numbers. So by default, if I type in a phone number, like this, the 0 will automatically disappear. However, if we want to format it as text, we can now insert the 0 back in and it will remain. Let's delete that. And now let's move on to looking at some formatting of our worksheet itself. The first thing we're going to look at is formatting our text. We do this much like we do in Microsoft Word. So we're going to select our text here, and we're going to go up to these options under font, where we can make the text bold, italic, and underlined. We can also change the colour of the text, like so. And we can also change the font using this option, and the font size, like so. We also have a few extra options for our text in Microsoft Excel, and these come with the orientation. So we can choose to have our text angled at a certain angle, and we can also choose to wrap text if we want the text to go over multiple lines within the same cell. What we can do is we can also merge and center a series of cells. So if I want this employee's heading to be split between these 3 cells, I can press merge and center, and I've now combined those 3 cells into one large cell, which has been centered. Again, I can use bold, italics, and underlines. But now let's look at how we can format the cells themselves. We can apply a background color to our cells. For example, if I select all of these cells, I want to make the background color a blue, I can click here, or I can click this drop down option to pick a cell color that I like the look of. For example, this pale blue color here. We can also apply borders to our cells. If we select all of the cells we want to have a border on, and then come to this cross box here, we can then choose between a series of different options. We're going to choose all borders, and as we can see, we now have dark borders on all of our cells. We're going to apply that again to this option here, and as we can see, we've now put borders on all of our cells. Next, we're going to start looking at some of the basic maths options in Microsoft Excel. To start off with, we're going to look at multiplication to work out the amount somebody would be paying in tax. We're going to assume that tax is 20% here, so we're going to type equals, and then we're going to click on their wage. Every formula, including basic maths in Excel, starts with the equals. And when clicking on a cell after an equals, we're then using the value of that cell. It's much better to use a reference to the cell rather than typing in the number itself. So if the value in that cell, for example the wage, changes, the tax will automatically recalculate for us. This is why Excel is so powerful. We're then going to press the star button, in this case, to multiply. So this is the symbol we use in Excel for multiplication. We're then going to type in 0.2 because this is the percentage that we're using for tax, and press enter. What we can see is we've got these hashes. This means that the cell is not wide enough to display our value. All we're going to do is we're going to come up to the top where we have F and click and drag to widen our cell, like this, or you can double click on the edge and it'll automatically widen it to the correct value for you. We're going to select this cell again, and then rather than repeating this formula in every cell, we're going to click on the bottom right and drag it down, and this will automatically copy this formula down, moving the cell reference down with it. So this is now going to apply to this cell, D5, this is going to go for D6, and this D7. Again, we're going to format these as currencies, like so. And now let's move on to doing the final pay. So the person's final pay is going to be their wage minus the amount of tax. So we're going to go for this, equals sign again. Then we're going to select their wage, and then we're going to take off the amount they're paying in tax, which is this cell. So we're going to select those two cells and just put a minus sign in between. Now when you press enter, it'll work out their final pay. And again, we can copy that down and make it into currency formatting, and widen the cell so that it fits. Let's move over, and we're now going to work out their daily and weekly pay. Their daily pay is just going to be their final pay divided by 365 days of the year. To do the divide, we're going to just use this / icon. And there we go. And we can copy that down. And again, make it into currency. And finally, their weekly pay, we're going to do the same sort of thing. So we choose their final pay and divide by 52 weeks of the year. So again, we're just using the / and we can copy that down and make it currency. You can also use the plus symbol in Excel. However, rather than doing that, we're going to look at using the sum function. So let's do that now. In this total here, we're going to look at the total pay that we're giving to all 4 employees. So we could do this by going equals to this one, plus this one, plus this one, plus this one. And that gives us 241,000. However, there's an easier way to do sums, especially if we're summing a large amount of data. We're going to start by typing equals, like we do for all formulas, and this time we're going to type the word sum, and open brackets. We're now going to select the range that we want to sum, so those 4 cells, D4 to D7, using the conventions that we talked about earlier. We're now going to close brackets, and press enter. And it's now calculated 241,000 for our sum of our wages. We're now going to look at how we do an average. So we type equals, and then we're going to type the word average. This will return the arithmetic mean of our values. So we can then again select these 4 and close brackets, and we can see that we've now got the average of our wages. You can find the maximum value by typing equals max, and then again selecting our range, and this will tell us that the maximum wage is 72,000. And again, we can do the same thing for the minimum. So we can type equals min, select our range, and there we go. So the minimum value is £48,000. You can also apply some of these equations or formula across different worksheets. Let's go back to our worksheet that we created a minute ago, and we'll zoom in a little bit. If I wanted to get a value, for example the total, from our other worksheet, we're going to type equals, and then we're going to go across to our other worksheet and select the total. Now, when I come up to the formula bar and press the tick, we will see that the total automatically jumps across to this worksheet. So that's how we can use formulas jumping across between worksheets. We've now moved over to this long data set, and we're going to be looking at how we can sort, filter our data, and the use of tables. However, before we do that, we might notice that when we're scrolling through our long data set, the headings disappear, and this can be quite irritating, especially if we're dealing with a very long data set like we have here. To fix this, all we're going to do is come across to View tab, and then we're going to come to Freeze Panes. We're now going to freeze the top row, and this way, when we scroll through our data, this top row will remain visible at all times. Now what we want to do is we want to make this data into a table. So we're going to select our whole table, like so, and then we're going to come to Format as Table. We're now going to choose the format that we like, for example this one. We'll then enter the range of our table, which is done automatically based on our selection, and we're going to click OK. As we can see, we've now formatted our data as a table. When we've done this, we see these drop-down icons on our table, and this is useful for sorting and filtering our data. We might want to, rather than having our data ordered in the order of the days, we might want to order it based on the days which had the most to the least profit. To do that, we come to Profit, and then we sort largest to smallest. We can now see that the 27th of November was our most profitable day, and if we scroll right down to the bottom, the 26th of April was our least. We can also filter our data to only show certain values. For example, if I unselect everything, I could then select, say, just June to see only the data in June. And I can click OK, and as we can see, we now only have the data for June being displayed. To remove this filter, we just come to here and clear filter from date. And there we go, it's now back to having all of our data. So that's how we can sort and filter our data with a table. Next, let's have a look at graphs. So graphs are a powerful tool in Microsoft Excel. We've got this data table that we want to make a graph out of. We're going to select all of this data, then click Insert, and then we're going to come across to Recommended Charts. If you have a specific type of chart that you want to insert, then you can choose it. For example, this pie chart, a scatter graph, or a bar graph. However, we're going to choose Recommended Charts and let Excel decide what the best type of chart is for us. I like the look of this line graph, so we're going to click OK on that one. We can also do some editing to this graph. For example, we can change the style here, for example, like so. We can also edit the elements by coming here. So we can change which axes are displayed, add the axes titles, for example, month, down here. And we can also add the vertical axis, like so. We can also choose to add data labels, a data table, error bars, change which grid lines are displayed, add a legend in, say a legend to the right, like so, or add trend lines. I could say add a linear trend line, like so, which would show that this profit looks like it's doing a gentle decline throughout time. That's everything on the graphs. So let's pop back over to this worksheet, where we're going to look at some conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is formatting each cell, like we did here, but changing the formatting that's applied based on the contents of that cell. So for example, I have male and female here, and I might want to highlight them different colours. To do that, all I do is I come to conditional formatting, and I apply a highlight cell rule, and I'm going to make it equal to. So now, every time it is female with an F, let's make the box red with dark red text. And click OK. And again, when we come back and do the same for male, let's make it green this time, say. We can now see that the formatting has been applied like so. Also, when we change this, so from M to F, the formatting will automatically change for us. To remove this formatting rule, we can come here and then click on Manage Rules. This lets us delete specific rules or edit the rule if it's wrong. So I can choose to delete them, and the formatting will now disappear. We can also apply some formatting to the wages. So for example, we could apply a data bar, which will fill in the cell by a different amount based on its value. So for this one, I'm going to put in a blue data bar, which shows that 72,000 is the most and 48,000 is the least. And it's showing basically a small graph about how much data is in there. We can clear that rule, like so. And then we can also choose to use a color scale instead. I might say choose this one, where the highest pay is in green, and then we have a range of colors going right down to red for the lowest pay. So this is also an easy way of seeing how the data is shown. If I change this one to say 80,000, everything will automatically change. Excellent. So now let's look at how we can protect our data. So quite often, we might need to send our Excel worksheets to other people. To do so, we might want to protect our worksheet. What we do is we come across to Review, and then we're going to protect this worksheet. We can then choose what people are able to do without entering a password. And all they're able to do is select the cells and select the unlocked cells. And we're going to type in a password, 123, click OK, and then enter the password again, and click OK. Now this sheet is locked. So if I try editing or changing any of this data, it won't let me without entering a password. To unlock this sheet, we come up to Unprotect Sheet, and then type in the password again, and the sheet has now been unprotected. So we're now able to edit the worksheet again. We can also protect our whole workbook. So this will keep others from making structural changes to your workbook, such as moving, deleting, or adding worksheets. We can click on this, and then again type in 123 as our password, and repeat. And we've now protected our whole workbook, so it won't let us say add a new worksheet. We can then click on that again to unprotect our workbook, and just type in our password. And our workbook has now been unprotected, so we will now be able to add in new worksheets again. To delete a worksheet, we right click on it and come up to delete, and that will now delete that worksheet. That's everything we wanted to show you in this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you found this useful. If you did, make sure you leave a like, subscribe and leave a comment, and come back in the future for more tutorials on using Excel, as well as many other applications. But for now, goodbye.